Okay, so I wanted to capture this thought before it totally got convoluted in my mind. Um, I would call this one of my self talks. I was just sitting here this morning thinking about um, just the state of our world today, the U.S. government, and things like that. And the, I guess, heavy burden that a lot of us are having to feel. Um, and having to wrestle with during this time, and um, sometimes it's hard to decide what your focus should be, or what you should be concerned with or not concerned with, um, and how much of what's going on, particularly in our government, is our responsibility as citizens, and a lot of it seems like has been kind of out of our hands. And I don't profess by any means to be heavily involved in all matters of politics. I don't know all the ins and outs. I just know that I try to pay attention to what's going on. I try to look for resources and people that have um, perspectives that are not just like mine, but at least have perspectives that at least look at all pieces of the puzzle. So I am open to views that may be considered opposing to what I believe and stand for, and all of that. And I try to be as fair as possible, um, to not immediately go to judgment mode. I try to, um, if it's content that I'm looking at, I try to look at who's speaking, what their message is, what their background is, and who their audience is, because I also recognize that a lot of people that are speaking and talking, in any realm, not just politics, I might not be their audience. And so when I'm crossing paths with a whole lot of information and resources, social media, online, or just anywhere, I try to look at those things and then decide, if I'm going to speak, make a comment, change my idea, change my thought process around things, or just shift my perspective. So I try to approach all of this from a it, fair with quotes, well, as much as possible. Now, the difficult thing about that, and I preface this saying this first before I go into what I was really thinking, is that the reality is, for a lot of black and brown people, women of color, um, and our communities, um, we are dealing with layers and layers of trauma and difficulty that have been passed down from our generations, and we are aware of that. And I'm proud of the fact that a lot of our generation is attempting to reframe a lot of that stuff, trying to reframe it, and pick apart the things that will help us move forward. And some of that involves being involved in some of the heavy lifting and the problematic areas, with concerning racism, and all of that. And a lot of us have been trying to figure out where we fit in this puzzle in helping to improve that. And some of us have been called to positions of like higher standing, public facing roles, um, that will allow us to do that. And meanwhile, there's a majority of us that have been called to a different area. Like, and this is hard for me to explain. So back to my original thought, I was sitting here thinking, like, with all the things that are going on and where I kind of physically am, mentally, emotionally where I am, how much can I actually involve myself, and to how much involvement could or should I have in some of these things that are going on that are just very controversial. And I don't really have an answer fully, but I was just thinking that there's gotta be, I don't know if there's anybody out there that's already talking about this, but I'll give an example. Somebody who is really, really struggling in life, for example, trying to keep their lights on, which is, by the way, the mass majority of Americans right now, in different stages of their life path or whatever, are struggling with this. But just for the sake of making this point, there's only so much that that person can, there's only so much bandwidth that that person has to be super, super involved in all the intricacies of what's going on in our government and things like that. And so I'm trying to figure out a way, just for myself, I'm starting with me, what are things that are closer to me that I could potentially have an impact in or make an impact. And I've been trying to figure this out, not to overwhelm myself, but I feel like when we talk about these issues, and they're just, sometimes they're just really, really broad, and a lot of the professionals have, the certain resources and the connections and stuff that they have to do their job, to speak about these things and things like that. But the mass majority of us who are, and not to say that those people aren't living the exact lives that we are, and they just happen to have a bigger voice in the space, which I appreciate, because those are the people that I look up to, like mentors, right? But the vast majority of us, the others of us, are still trying to figure out how we move in this space. Like, where does our voice matter? And usually most people will tell us that it's at the voting booth, at the polls. And many of us have done that. We have kind of shifted our focus to our local governing bodies and all of that, right? And what that's true for me. At the same time, I'm also thinking about a person who has just been displaced in their home is not thinking about the voting booth. They're not thinking about the candidates, and that's a debate in itself, because we could argue and say that this is also the goal, of I guess you say the powers that be, is that we're so distracted and just so in a space of like survival that we miss all of this. So I get all of that, but there's got to be a different approach for situations like that, because voting is one thing, but when a person has been displaced from their home, in a community that they would typically might vote in, or they don't have a car or whatever. And I know that we have been doing some work on the ground. People have, in programs, have been doing work on the ground to help get people to the polls. And I think that is wonderful and great. I just feel like there's still something missing in that space. And maybe the answer is really people who are really in those spaces can't really do much of anything, maybe that's part of the answer. So for me and where I sit, I'm not in that space. I'm not displaced in my home. Things are not cut off. You know what I mean? Am I, paying bills and like having to renegotiate some things? Yes. But I'm in a space where I'm still present, and I still haven't been displaced in a way where I can't still be using some of my time to help in some way. So I've been trying to figure out for myself where those spaces are, and where can I show up to help, assist, lend my voice, my vote, in a way that's not taking away from what I need and what my household needs of my time and availability to make it, and that's what I've been working on. That's what I've been kind of, and was thinking about all the people that are in different stages of this. Like, we're all feeling the pinch somewhere, but some of us are feeling it in different ways, and it feels a little bit heavier than others. And to those people, because this morning I feel like that I'm in that space, and I'm just like, if the best that I can do is get up this morning and look around my home and say to myself, thank you, God, thank you, universe, that I have a home, and I have something to eat. And today I'm going to help a friend of mine look after her two daughters while she's working. Just sit with them. They really don't need me, but but it eases her mind to have somebody there with them for the few hours that she will be away, even though they're fully capable of being home, and they're of age. And so part of me, well, talking about that, I realize now that part of what I'm doing is helping, and I'm just trying to figure out where I fit in all of this, and are there other things or other ways that I could do this. And so I plan to come up with some suggestions, probably in a blog post, that will kind of outline, particularly for people that are considered like low income, or just kind of writing that fine line of like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I just feel like there's a level of shame that comes along with that, when you know that all these things are happening in the world and you want to be present to help in some way, but you're the person in need. Like, you're the person that needs the assistance. You're the person that needs the help. You're the person that's looking to all these other people to like, can you be my voice? So I say all that to say that I know that there are a lot of people out there that want to and desire to have more presence in that space, to lend their voice or to lend their helping hand, but they just can't do it. Their hands are tied. And I wanted to find a way to encourage those people in that part of the journey where it feels like you're so dependent on the voice of everybody else to be your voice, when you just you barely have your own, because you're barely hanging on. And so I was trying to figure out a way in this moment, in this whole thought process, of how I could help in that space, give those people and people like me who are in the space that I am, just some encouragement, and to also maybe outline some things that might be alternative ideas for being helpful where they are in their space, in the communities that they are. And there's more to the puzzle than saying just go vote. It's more than that, and I just want to try to figure that piece out for myself, while I'm still here, while I'm still connected to this community that I'm in. I just think that there is a space in between all that that's not talked about and shared as much, or considered as valuable, because I know there's a lot of people that are having conversations, that are checking in on family members. My family and I, we check in on each other often, and maybe that's part of it, and maybe that is part of it, but I feel like if there was something out there that kind of spelled that out for people like me and people who are like kind of like trying to push through in this season, I think that they would feel so much better about themselves, they would feel some sense of hope, and they would actually, it could actually change their perspective a bit, you know? So that's where I'm at. This is a weird, awkward space to be in, but I thank myself for listening. And I don't post these as often as I used to, but my name is Neri Teato. I have a blog called livingalifeofcreativity.com, and I'm working on a way to expand the things that I talk about there. A lot of it is, I've kind of narrowed it down to creativity, wellness, and style, because style is fun. It's a cool, fun element of just my passion and creativity. But then the creativity piece is connected to hands-on things that I do, like my crafting, any kind of creativity topic connected to creativity, because I think that's really important. I feel like creativity is the wheel that brings solutions to the table. And so the more that we're active in those things, I feel like the better we are as humans and how we show up in the world, right? And then the wellness, I went on my own wellness journey. I kicked it off in February of this year. So I've got some updates on that. And I'm not heavily involved in wellness from a sense of weight, but a lot of, like all the weight and things like that. But a lot of mine connects to, recipes, switching things up there, and, just some updates on my appointments and, what it's been like in the healthcare space, navigating that, and things like that. So I'm taking a different approach from the blog, the original design. So when you go to livingalifeofcreativity.com, it's a creative life by Neri. So this is my personal experience and perspective of a variety of topics. And so this will likely be one of them, but I would like to expand it and pull some things together to encourage those people that are like grinding and hustling through in this time. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of my day started, but I had to put this thought out there before it just kind of came and went, because I do think there's value in it. And I'd like to come back and listen to this and explore it a little bit more to see what other possibility I could bring out of this and bring out into my writing as well. So just stay tuned for that. If any of this resonated with you, I appreciate you sticking around for this 19 minute mind spill, if you will. Don't know what else to call it. I call it my self-talk session. And I look forward to having some extra things as resources when I post this. So thank you so much for listening. I thank myself for listening. And I'm going to breathe a sigh of relief and get the rest of my day started.